If you decide not to do the Saxby site, you know, if there is that gentleman's agreement.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Any more discussion on the feasibility
Are we
study?
capping this at 15,000, the motion?
Yes.
Second.
And this will be for the Swepsonville site only.
For one site, the 15,000 should cover that.
We're just looking at one site, right?
That's correct. And this would give you the information I think you would need to make an informed decision. It is an important decision.
Mr. Smith, would you repeat your motion?
My motion. It was,
I'll second.
Repeat it. I want to know what the motion was.
they said was to exclude Saxby and include the other place with all the things that he's asking, he's saying he's going to take in
And cap it at
consideration.
15,000.
And cap it at 15,000.
Now second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Let me, hopefully this is a long meeting.
Alamance County is pleased to present the Alamance County Commissioners Meeting.
The Alamance County Board of Commissioners is now in session. Thank all of you for coming this evening. We have a large crowd, so if we can be orderly and quiet so we can hear what everybody has to say, hopefully. We have a lot of people signed up for the public comments, and the public comment policy of the Alamance County Board of Commissioners is on the in the same book that you signed up in. I hope that everybody read the policy. There is one paragraph I would like to specifically read. That's paragraph 2. Each person desiring to speak during the public comment period shall have 3 minutes to make his or her remarks. There shall be no more than 3 speakers on any one topic per meeting. But again, I want to read one particular paragraph. That's paragraph number 2. Each person desiring to speak during the public comment period shall have 3 minutes to make his or her remarks. There shall be no more than 3 speakers on any one topic per meeting. But the other commissioners are very intelligent, and what I'm driving at is repetition does not make anything easier for us to understand. All right, we have...
Mr. Chair, how many people do you have signed up?
We have about 30. Yeah, this is the comment policy, not the public hearing.
It's always been there, Tim.
No, it hasn't.
Well, it's been there since I've been here.
Yeah, it was there when
Okay.
we instituted it, and,
Yeah.
you know, I want to hear what the citizens have to say. And, you know, I would like to see us, I'm not doing it for that reason. You know, I appreciate I want to hear what the citizens have to say. And I make a motion that we waive the rules for tonight. And I think we should have that prerogative on any meeting.
Oh, I think you do.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. First one is, and if I can't read your name, I'm sorry, but Mike Holland. To save time, let's line people up so we don't have to wait for all of them to come in. The next one is Elizabeth Raines. Doug,
I'm here, sir. I'm here.
I got you. Just hold on. Mr. Holland, go right ahead. 3 minutes.
County Commissioners, Chair, thank you so much. This is a public statement from the community of Saxby from a public forum this weekend. I'd like to present it to y'all. And we have some folks that would be speaking, and they would be submitting theirs as well to go in this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
When we found out January 16th about this facility, we had to ask the question, why Saxbahaw? The stated case was that it was going to be a facility that was large, this was in the paper, that made money. It was a regional draw for training for fire and rescue people from around the area. And so to us, we thought we're far from the interstate, and we have no water. We have farmland, we have farmers, hardworking dairy farmers. So why Saxbahaw? We looked at another alternative position. This is Swepsville's old landfill site, which has a 1 mile road network, has a 1/4 mile of paved roads, has a security fence, a 500-foot antenna. It's got 346 acres over 3 parcels that are all joined. This looked like a phenomenal location. Across the street from the entrance here is an 8-inch water pipe that the mayor of Swepsville says will supply water very nicely, and Newton's Fire and Rescue is in Swepsville. And we had to ask ourselves, why Saxbahaw? So we looked back. In '96, we put in an application to the Clean Water Management Trust Fund for a state park grant for $4 million. It didn't go through. The Haw River State Park ended up river. In 2004, you were sitting right here as the county attorney then. We spent a lot of time together, and after 2 months, we took 2 votes. One to privatize the landfill and sell it to a company in Raleigh for $40 million, and another vote to extend the landfill service area to 60 counties. And in 2 months, the citizens of Saxbahaw showed this commission that the staff's idea was a bad idea. And we convinced y'all to unvote those 2 votes. You rescinded those votes. This commission made the political brave statement right before the election to do that. We were so glad for that. We come up in 2008, land was bought across from the landfill for an expansion, for a buffer. And in this year, luckily and happily, you were elected commissioner, and in December announced county commissioner chair, and then in January we hear that you are behind this, you were for this move to Saxbahaw. And we looked at the landfill then, because we had worked on the landfill together trying to preserve that for the county's use back in 2004. And we looked at the land beside the landfill, the 1,100-acre parcel that Bruce Cameron owned. Now, he died in April, and we had to say to ourselves, this gentleman died in April. He was a wonderful old man. We really respect him. His grandchildren now have the property. What would happen if you put a facility of this nature, a high-impact use facility, across from the landfill entrance, so that road now, which has effectively kept development off that 1,100 acres for 20 years, because nobody wants to drive past the landfill, into a dead-end dirt road, and it's locked by the Orange County border and the Haw River. How much time do I have left?
I see it.
Okay. Thank you so much for considering finding the best location possible for our good sheriff. We want it. Everybody I've talked to does, and we want to support that best location, but we don't think that's Saxbahaw, and we don't want a 1,500-acre mega landfill. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Doctor. Elizabeth Raines.
I'll be speaking on behalf of Elizabeth Raines.
This Elizabeth Raines.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Raines, and I am from Saxbahaw. Family home place and property here. That property is less than 500 yards from the proposed training center site on Austin Quarter Road. I have 2 children, Owen, who is 3 years old, and Eleanor, who is 8 months old. Sorry. I want them to feel and be safe in our woods. I'm sure that every precaution would be made to assure people's safety, but would you let your children climb in the backyard while you listen to the gunshots ring through those same trees? I suggest that if you believe that another training facility is needed in Alamance County, we consider other locations and evaluate where this facility would best serve our county. Maybe there is a community in Alamance County that would benefit from housing this facility. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Raines. Doug Williams.
Thank you for your attention to my thoughts relative to the proposed training facility. I have lived and worked in Alamance County for over 25 years. Also an owner of several business entities within Saxbahaw. Not believe that locating the training center on Austin Quarter Road is in the best interest of the community, the local residents, the farmers, or the county itself. Saxbahaw has helped put Alamance County on the map. In closing, I do not believe this facility should be in the Saxbahaw community.
Everything we have is invested in our land. Please don't put it in my neighborhood. It will break my heart.
I just can't imagine the impact that this may have on school children.
So I'm pretty agitated. I see this facility as an economic threat to my livelihood.
I fear that the noise pollution and the chaos created by the deployment of training exercises at the proposed facility will compromise the atmosphere of the village.
I just don't see that this training facility is a really great fit for the community. I think it would really change the direction that the community is going in.
I'm here in support of my neighbors against the location of this facility in Saxapahaw.
As a resident of Saxapahaw, I would be a close neighbor to this facility. I have a young daughter that I will not raise around the noise and pollution that could come with this facility. My husband and I could have lived anywhere, but my husband chose to serve the citizens of Alamance County, and we chose to live in Saxapahaw. Please help us to continue to make our life in Alamance County and choose another location for this facility. Please don't make it our neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Jane?
I'd like to point out an issue that Mr. Holland made in reference to the landfill. Bill, were you with us when we flew down and looked at the other one? I think I'm the only one that was on our board. We were being entertained by a regional company to sell our landfill, to become a regional landfill. And we flew down. I don't think anybody on our board really seriously was thinking about it. I was there.
This is WFMY News 2 at 11 o'clock.
A landfill controversy in Alamance County is dead, well, at least for now. County commissioners toyed with the idea of selling the landfill to a private company and letting haulers bring in trash from up to 60 miles away. But many voters didn't like that idea, saying the landfill should only take in Alamance County's trash. Tonight, commissioners agreed.
I thought it was fantastic that the county commissioners showed the political courage to do what the people, their constituents, wanted.
We're pleased to do what the people have asked us to do, and they're saying that they just want to take in Alamance County's trash, and we believe that that's what we're elected to do, is do what the people want to do.
Tonight's vote will ensure local trash is the only stuff entering the landfill. Now, earlier this month, commissioners decided against finding a private operator for that facility.
We were offered about $1.5 million a year for service fees if we did it, about $10 million on the barrelhead if we did it, and we flew down and looked at one. We flew over the Sharon Harris nuclear plant. Went over to Campbell College, where I went to Campbell. It was what would that be? Southeast. I'm not sure. What county was that, John? Sampson County. And we flew down and looked at it, and we went to lunch, and we came back, and it was an automatic. In my opinion, we never seriously considered it, because I wasn't, with my vote, willing to sell our landfill and then have to find other space for it later for the price of one elementary school. And that's about what it's going to come to. $10 million plus $1.5 million a year. In 10 years, you're looking at, what, $20 million? Well, $30 million, I think, or $25 million. That won't even pay for a school. But the bottom line is, we never seriously considered selling our landfill as a regional landfill. Yes, the talk was there, but it never was even close to a vote, in my opinion. And it was just a trip to look. That's all it was. That's as I remember it.
Anything else? Let's take a brief recess.
Thank you. 5-minute break.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Are there any items on the agenda as it stands that anyone wants to pull? I would like to pull A4. I'll ask if there's a motion for tonight. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please signify. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, the first item Next item, I'm sorry, is Alamance County Training Facility presentation. Sheriff Johnson, Darrell Russell, and Dr. Gatewood are here on that. Sheriff, lead off.
Yes, sir. First of all, let me say that I agree with a lot of the Saxby Hall residents, how beautiful Saxby Hall is. I played many a day of baseball down there beside the elementary school in Saxby Hall. It is a quaint little village. It's unique to Alamance County. Secondly, there have been no site selected. We were looking at the Saxby Hall site. We're looking at Swepsonville site and any other site that could hold basically what we are really wanting to do. And at this time, the training center is just in a planning stage looking. We have the support of all the emergency service chiefs, fire chiefs, law enforcement chiefs, EMS, 911, every possible emergency service in Alamance County. As you have, I gave you a letter that they signed on to, and a lot of them here. If you would stand up if you're a fire chief, and the fire marshal's office. Some were here in the back room, but they've already left. Reason we have been discussing a training center for some time. The chiefs have, and through ACC at our board there. There is a definite need for more intense, specialized training for all emergency personnel in Alamance County. Certainly it would save us money because we have sent people out of state many times to receive the training, which if we had a regional training center ran by the Alamance Community College, they could bring those individuals here to run trainings that we have to send people out for. A training center would enhance the caliber of training for all our emergency personnel in the county. It could bring outside agencies to Alamance County, which a charge could be made and money be made by the university or by the ACC. And certainly it could help some economics here with money spent on gas, food, and lodging. And certainly that's a feasible possibility. A regional training center would allow at times all emergency personnel to train together on simulated catastrophic events such as school shootings if we had a training center. And believe me, we are not exempt from those type happenings in this county. We have had a couple of situations in some of our schools where the schools had to be locked down, and we had a kidnapping at one of them that we later got the child back out of South Carolina. And these are just some of the things that we're looking at. Emergency service personnel would be better trained to deal with all emergency situations in our county. And when we're talking about emergency personnel, I'm talking about your EMS, your fire, your police, your 911 dispatchers, your Alamance County Rescue Unit, Sheriff's Office, and all law enforcement agencies. One of the things the guy said in here about Burlington, talked about that they wouldn't necessarily use it from day to day. Well, they would if we brought that specialized training to Alamance County. That's why those chiefs and fire chiefs signed on. They don't like having to send their people out. And they have a Burlington Training Center, but it is not big enough to accommodate the necessary things that we're needing in law enforcement, like a large enough driving track. And I can tell you, you commissioners know that a lot of sheriff's cars and police cars wrecked in this city. Matter of fact, in the ice, we had a lady cream one of our sheriff's cars. A driving track is certainly needed here in Alamance County. And we are looking at developing this training center, if we can, with the commissioner's help and the citizens' help here in Alamance County. We do not have a training center in the Piedmont area. If we want to send somebody, we send them to Edneyville up in the mountains or Salemburg down in Sampson County, which is the sand flea capital of the world. And believe me, it is. We are talking, and like I say, this is just in the planning stage. There's been, we're trying to get committees together to look at this. But there's a need for a driving track here for our law enforcement emergency personnel, a firing range, a simulated burn house where firefighters can go in and go in burning house, which is not really burning, it's gas type stuff, to simulate what they would have to do in going into homes to save our kids and people. A fire tower, a physical training course in classrooms for EMS, fire, 911 dispatchers, rescue, and law enforcement. And I have honestly talked to John Jordan down in Saxball. He said he would love to be able to have maybe a couple fields, soccer fields, on one section down there. That is not unfeasible situation, because this training center, and when it's operating, it's not going to be operating on 11, 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and certainly we don't look for it to be operated on the weekends. And certainly things can be worked out, I'm sure, through the college if they take over heading up this training center and make it community friendly, etc. And so we're here to ask the commissioners to be thinking about this and grant us the authority to move forward in exploring the possibility of a training center here, because it is a win-win situation, I think, for Alamance County and certainly the emergency service personnel. And certainly this has been talked about for several years, and when Dr. Gatewood got to the Alamance Community College's head, certainly it's really a great breath of fresh air, because he wants to move forward with things. And we need this here in Alamance County. So I would like the chiefs want to say anything before Dr. Gatewood gets up here. Come on.
How y'all? Glad to be here. I'm Cliff Parker, Chief Police of the town of Elon, and the current president of the Elon College, or excuse me, the Alamance County Law Enforcement Executive Committee. And I would just like to say that we believe, as a law enforcement group, as an emergency response group, as first responders, fire, EMS, that a training center here would be beneficial to everyone, and that having a facility wherever it could be located in our county would be very beneficial, particularly to
Sheriff Johnson, how many acres you think you would need for that?
Well, we're looking at that. They're getting out of the way of Carmen King just to look at it. But I'm telling you right now, you're probably not looking about 30 to 40 acres at the most out there. So what I'm saying, they would be land for what John Jordan and some of the people in the community I've talked to would want, as far as like soccer fields and something for recreation down there. We have no problem with that. Okay. We want to be community friendly wherever we go and whatever we do.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Smith, members of the commission. Thank you for the opportunity to join Sheriff Terry Johnson tonight to speak with you about one of the things that's going to move us truly into the 21st century in a very big way, is by educating our populace. So again, it's not about the site. I'm not that familiar to advocate for any particular site, but I'm truly advocating for education. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gatewood. Sheriff, what are you looking for tonight?
Nothing, just permission for you folks to move forward through our county manager and looking at different sites and evaluating each site of what is going to be needed, what can be done, what can't be done on whatever sites that we see is feasible to the possibility of developing a training center. From there, I'll be honest with you, I'm going to start advocating to try to look at possible grants down the road once a site is selected to try to make it no taxpayer money.
So you're asking this board to approve a feasibility study?
Yes, sir, that's what I'm asking.
I'd like to ask a few more questions first. I sat here for an hour and a half and listened to people speak, and now we want to do this in 5 minutes. I'd like to ask some questions.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, it just, government as usual. At its max, what do you think it would cost to give you, put out there everything you want? The max. I mean, you
You're
don't.
talking if we had to pay for it?
Right. Well, it's going to cost money
Well,
to
you
pave the
probably
track,
look-
build the
and like-
towers, and everything that you want to do.
Well, certainly, I'm not a construction expert, but you're probably looking at $5, $6, $7 million.
Right. And where's that, you think that money's going to come from all grants?
There's some private people that does certain things that's already said they would do something like, say, a track, a firing range, and then certainly the Governor's Crime Commission on things with the state emergency coordinators.
Yeah, I think we've got to be cognizant of the fact that it's going to cost money to.
Oh, there's no, hey, I'm not going to say it to you, it's going to cost money
Now,
somewhere.
You ever been up to Moyock, Currituck, Blackwater's driving facility that's there?
I'm familiar with what you're talking about.
I know a person that trains people there, and their site is 134 acres, and they have multiple courses. They have asphalt, they have concrete, they join them together, they drive them separate. It's total 6 miles if they put it all together, and it's on 134 acres. And I talked to him earlier today, and he told me that he didn't feel like what we were looking at least at the landfill, the current landfill, was big enough to do everything that we're talking about wanting to do, in his opinion. Well, in his opinion. We've got the landfill of 300 acres that we've got to do something with.
I don't care where it's at,
Okay.
but I'm telling you,
Right.
I just want our people to be trained properly.
I would support further investigation as long as we just don't have unabated beliefs that it has to go down to the southern part of the county.
I initially was looking at the Swepsonville and was told it was a better site and carried down to the dump and said this would be a better site. Certainly, the flatness of it is a better site. Secondly, to get to the Swepsonville land, I think we would have to buy some land to get across or get an easement to get across to that. I don't care where
See,
the
the
site
attitude
is.
there, in my opinion, was not in my backyard, send it down to theirs. And it's my opinion about government, when they place infrastructure, there's infrastructure that you have to place that's mandated. You have to have water, you have to have landfill.
Yes, sir.
This is not mandated, and I think it would be nice. But areas pay a price to have infrastructure in their backyard. And I couldn't believe all the great comments tonight about how cordial they thought that our landfill was to the neighbors. I think they've paid a dear price to have that piece of what can be negative infrastructure in their backyard, especially when it comes to recycling. So I would respectfully ask that we look for other sites if we're going to go farther, and we really have to be cognizant of the fact that if we approve a study, we're approving going forward, number one. Number two, you're talking $5 million, and somebody's got to pay that.
And as soon as we see that we're moving forward, I assure you, there's going to be contacts made with people within the state to try to get commitments for some of the monies to produce the training center, whatever that may be. And I assure some of those farmers spoke tonight, went to school with them, and I do care about what happens down there. That's why when we build, we need to make sure that we take in consideration every aspect of what we're doing as far as building a training center.
Now, is Allie here tonight?
Darrell Russell is, and also to further with the discussion, there are probably more sites, but what we were looking at was property that was owned and controlled by the county.
Exactly.
And that was one of the issues we were looking at to try to keep the proposed costs down. And
Absolutely. I want to ask a question about the old landfill site. How many of you, where is he?
there's Darrell.
Do you remember the National Guard Armory in Forsyth County? I want to say it was probably 40 years ago, roughly, that blew up, and it was on a landfill site.
I do.
Okay. Can you give us a little history of that? And
not in detail, I don't remember it. I just remember it being on the news.
Yeah.
Before you get to that, Tim, what's the cost of the feasibility study? Just that alone?
All right, 15 is what we're looking at, to look at the two sites that are owned by the county, and with some public informational meetings as well, is $15,000. And again, that would be to evaluate both sites that is owned by the county.
Mr. Sutton, I apologize.
No, that's fine. Yeah. What I was trying to point out is we can't use that site for anything else, for all intents and purposes.
So let me ask the question.
Well, I wasn't through with this. you can't use that site for anything else where there's much enclosure and the methane gas and so forth. So an outdoor structure where it's outdoor activity probably is the safest use for that property, in my opinion, based on what I know about methane gas. So, and I'm sorry, Bill, I didn't mean to be rude there.
That is an issue that would need to be looked at during the evaluation. And so I don't know the answer yet to that.
Bill?
What I want to ask is, do we have an agreement with the farmers who sold that land that they would have a lifetime use of that land? If we do, I think we should keep it in our agreement.
We do. We do have that agreement because I was involved in the purchase of that land from I don't know if it's in writing. Is it in writing? Part of the deed?
Mr. Smith, I believe the landfill director worked with the Ingalls. Mr. Ingalls Senior, Edgar, I believe his name was, and his wife Annie to buy that 116-acre tract. And then about 3 months later, we sold the home place back to these gentlemen here.
Yeah.
And I believe Greg Thomas has a gentleman's understanding that they can keep it under farm use just to keep trespassers off and continue using it for farm use. But I'm not aware of anything in writing. But Greg Thomas would be better able to answer that question.
Well, I know it was certainly discussed, and that was part of their agreement.
Mr. Ingalls got a comment here about that.
Can I bring this up to you?
Or to the chairman, whoever.
You would have this small print, wouldn't you?
Y'all get a picture of that.
It says right here, as part of the contract, this is the Times News by Robert Boyer. I didn't say that. The county also agreed to extend leases for the continued farming of corn, tobacco, and soybeans. So,
Well, Mr. Chairman, we have an agreement that this board just approved last year for the old landfill for a gentleman to run dogs and hunt on.
yeah.
And I'm just not aware of anything in writing for the Ingold property. There may be an agreement with Greg Thomas, but I don't believe it's been reduced to writing.
So back, when we bought the property from the county, remember me and my brother come to see you about doing all the paperwork?
Mm-hmm.
And I said something to you about, doing, we need to do a contract.
A license. You have to be a license.
And it never was followed through. And then I said something to Greg Thomas one day when I talked to him, and it never was followed through.
Well, if that's the board's wish, that's something the board can consider.
So, I mean, my brother and myself were very willing to, to pay
Sure.
land rent on it, to be tickled to do it.
The original reason the original reason for purchasing that land was a buffer for the entrance to the landfill.
That's correct.
And at that time, the county did not think that it would ever be used. It can't be used for landfill expansion.
Right.
So we didn't think it would ever be used. And that was the whole reasoning behind it.
Well, that's a good point. Can we get Greg, can you comment, can that land be applied for extension, further use, or?
Good evening, Commissioners. It actually could in the future. Our goal with our current landfill is to have an infinite landfill. In other words, we've taken a landfill that originally was slated to last 40 years, and now the projections are 80 plus.
Even without the buffer?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that's because of good management.
Well, I like to think so. But in the future, who's to say 80 years, 100 years? My goal, again, is a perpetual landfill. In other words, we would never cross that road for landfill purposes. Now, anything on our side of the road, one of our speakers mentioned putting something on the landfill side. I would not be a proponent of that because we may expand our convenience center, to have additional recycling. Recycling is going to be our life's blood in the future, because that is the way that we extend the landfill. The property across the road, Chairman Smith is exactly right. It was bought as a buffer, and there was a gentleman's agreement, I think, at that time. And I was thinking that there was a $2 a year lease, or
I don't think we ever entered into a written lease agreement.
Right.
No, it was, but, what I was saying, my brother and myself, had talked with you about it and never was followed through.
But, right, and I believe that we paid $631,000 for that piece of property, which was significant dollars in those days. And I know Mr. and Mrs. Edgar and Annie Engel have passed away. Right. And I think it was their son, I can't remember his name at this time, that orchestrated that. At that time, I think they needed some health care, and there was some concern about that. I don't know all the details on that, but that was the thought process at that time. But we paid a significant amount of money, not with the intent of putting a landfill there. Certainly, that's not our intent. But it is a viable piece of property. And in my discussion with Sheriff Johnson, and I can't speak for Sheriff Johnson, but it is a viable piece of property. It is accessible. It really is. But the board ultimately would make the decision as to what if anything would go out there. And any information that I can provide, certainly I'm willing to do so. Commissioner Sutton mentioned methane. And if we were to partner with ACC in the future with a joint venture, we could provide an alternative energy source in the form of methane generated from our landfill. At some point, we're going to have to recover that when we reach Title V, which would be 3 million tons in place, and that'll be a few years. But we will have to do something at that point. So that's a good question, or a good comment, I'm sorry. Gentleman's agreement, again, with that property.
They used to work.
As far as the gentleman's agreement, with my
Should still work.
You talk about, need this and need that. That's one thing for sure. None of anything is possible without a farm.
Right. And there's some concerns on our end with the landfill as we continue to expand. We've had a tremendous amount of break-ins at our landfill. We have, as I've mentioned, the most valuable fiscal asset that the county owns at the landfill, with hundreds of millions of dollars worth of airspace. We've got a lot of equipment. We had tremendous break-ins last year. I would like to see more of a law enforcement presence closer to us. So I know his sheriff's detectives have spent a lot of time out there. That's the concern that we have as we continue to grow. We've got a $500,000 recycling and processing facility that will be coming online in April. We're excited about that. Just a lot of potential at the landfill. We provide 20 jobs for families in Alamance County that not at the expense of tax dollars. So we are an economic stronghold really for the county. But the land, again, I think was a gentleman's agreement.
May I ask the sheriff, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go right ahead.
May I ask the sheriff, if we heard comments about helicopters, toxic fumes, all kinds of, any of that going on?
No, sir, I don't think there'll be no toxic fumes down there. I won't sit here and tell you there won't be a helicopter coming there, so if somebody got hurt out there on the driving track or something, had to bring Chapel helicopter in there, it'd probably come in there. But other than just helicopters hoovering around, no, that's not going to happen.
So what would a burning building create? Like,
Wait a minute.
toxic fumes?
Good question. We're going to keep this. We're not going to have a big debate about it tonight, I'll tell you that. Thank you, Mr. Toombs. Anything else, Sheriff? Anything else from the board? Tim?
Well, the money for the study would come from where?
Drug forfeiture money that is in the sheriff's department. He still has some state drug forfeiture as well as federal drug forfeiture that we can use. So it would not be county general fund dollars.
We have to approve that disbursement?
Yes, sir.
John,
And
anybody
and
else?
again, if I could say, we've not spent any money on this concept at this point. This has all been an idea that we're trying to flush out. And again, we didn't feel like we could flush it out really without having some type of study done to get the facts and also to do a master plan to see what would be feasible and what's not feasible. So.
What would the feasibility study include?
I did give you a copy of the draft from Allie Williams, Carmen and King. It should be in front of you. It would meet with county personnel and others as needed to finalize the size and location of all elements, perform a limited environmental review of the site, develop a sketch plan showing the size and location of elements, finalize preliminary master site plan including possible phasing, and provide a estimate of probable costs. Again, this would be, if this was approved, this would just be the first step. There would still have to be a noise and safety step that is included as well, which would be an additional study that we would have to look at. And preliminary discussion with Darrell is just the tabletop look for each site would be about $6,000. And then a more in-depth study of the safety and noise issue would be about $20,000. Is that fair?
Mr. Honeycutt and Mr. Chairman, if I may add a little bit about the old landfill. Commissioner Sutton asked some questions relative to that. One challenge there would be we could not put structures on the cap of that landfill. In other words, where trash has been covered and it's been capped off, you, by state regulations, you cannot place building structures on top of that. Now, that being said, it's not all capped off. There is virgin territory across the river to the tune of about 85 acres. And the sheriff mentioned that and accessibility. The challenge there would be to purchase property to access that without building a bridge across the river, which would be very expensive. So that's part of the equation. Certainly there's a lot of land there. There's been mention of a park on that 85 acres, riding trails, and certainly it's a good piece of property for something like that. But I just would mention that.
How much of the area is capped, as you say?
You're going back in the 70s, pre-me, and I'd be afraid to say definitively. I know about.
Are they talking about an enclosed building or an open? Could you do an open air? We're going to get all this in a feasibility study. I was
That's right. That's right. And I'm just mentioning that for your benefit.
Last question on my part. If we do a feasibility study, would we still have an up or down vote later to move forward?
Yes, sir. And again, this was nothing, we didn't feel comfortable as staff to make recommendations on this because there's environmental issues to look at with the landfill. There was siting issues for a range for safety issues. There was siting issues for a track and a burn house. We were not comfortable making that recommendation, and we didn't have the expertise. And that's the reason why we did contact Allie Williams, Carmen and King to bring us a recommendation to help us walk through that process, because we can't definitively tell you one is better than the other at a staff level, or it'll work at a staff level.
Would we have to do this feasibility study of the same nature if we just want to look at the old landfill site to see what we could do with it? Would it be the same type of study, or would it be?
Same type of study. We were looking at, as part of the $15,000, it was doing both sites. And again, not saying that those are the only two sites in Alamance County, but those were the only two large parcels that we had control of. And we were looking at trying to reduce the cost, or keep the cost down. But again, there may be other sites out there. You know, if somebody wants to donate 100 acres, we'd be glad to look at that as well.
Well, but I guess my question, let me rephrase.
sorry.
I'm sorry. If we said hypothetically, we want to study the old landfill site as to what we can do with it.
Yes, sir.
Period.
Yes, sir.
Would this be the same type of study?
Yes, sir.
Technically? Would
Yes,
it have
sir.
to be amended
Yeah.
or anything? I mean, this would be what we
Right.
would want to see, right?
Yes,
Whether
sir.
we plan this or not. All right, someday we got to do that anyway.
Right. Well, and we were looking at both, doing the same thing at both sites.
Anything else from the board?
And if I could question, Daryl's here now, if you decide not to do the Saxby site, if there is that gentleman's agreement, and again, that's a board decision on that. If we only had to look at one site that the county would the cost be $7,500?
It would, I would still want to
Right.
include the noise
Right,
assessment. for
right.
that.
So probably
It would be
up to
about the
15.
same- It would be about the same. number.
Right, including the noise and safety assessment on the tabletop look, we're still talking about $15,000.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Any more discussion on the feasibility
Are we
study?
capping this at 15,000, the motion?
Yes.
Second.
And this will be for the Swepsonville site only. Swepsonville site only, is that what we're saying?
That's what I'm thinking, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Are we capping it at 7,500?
Jim.
We should
And-
abide by that agreement.
And the other issue I would suggest with the board is to instruct staff to begin working on that agreement and making sure we do put that in writing.
That's good. Then are you capping it at $7,500?
Or 15,000. That includes the sound study.
I thought it was cut in half if we only went with one site.
Well, we would have to do the sound study. That was an additional cost.
All right.
Hold on.
Oh,
I just want to add one.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
I've been
Darryl.
hearing a lot.
So have we.
I'm sure you have. The noise and safety issue is something we're all concerned about, and that had not been included in the initial proposal. And we've actually talked to an out-of-town expert that does these type of studies, and I would want to use them as a team member to look at this issue. It is an important issue. So that would be included for one site. The 15,000 should cover that.
We're just looking at one site, right?
That's correct. And this would give you the information I think you would need to make an informed decision. It is an important decision.
Mr. Smith, would you repeat your motion?
My motion. It was,
I'll second.
I want to know what the motion was.
They said was to exclude Saxby and include the other place with all the things that he's asking, he's saying he's going to take in
And cap it at
consideration.
15,000.
And cap it at 15,000.
Now second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Let me, hope we got this is a long meeting. Let me say, I said these remarks about the landfill and its longevity, and I didn't say that just because of the good management, because we have had excellent management. But the longevity on that landfill in the last 5 years has increased almost 50 years or more because of management and because of new things that are coming down. But Greg and his staff have done an outstanding job. That is a state-of-the-art enterprise. All right, Mr. Oxley?
I'm Laurel Holtz-Oxley, and I live in Haw Village down by Saxbeth. How developing these 87 acres would threaten the safety and well-being of people that live in the area. Here are just a few of the items to consider. The author remarked that he lives by a rock quarry and therefore he understands our concerns about a facility. My husband and I also lived by a rock quarry for 22 years. and we are well aware of the generally once daily detonation that occurs during regular business hours.
Commissioners, Mr. Chair, my name is Mike Harwood. I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of North Carolina. If you're looking to build a facility here in the hopes of drawing people from out of town or from out of state to do training for revenue purposes, I can tell you that it's a risk. There's no history of training in Saxe-Bahá. There's nothing to tell people from out of town that Saxe-Bahá is the place to come and do fire or police training. There's no background for that. Saxe-Bahá, however, does have a very strong sense of place, and it's been touched on here with the tourist business. I've got here, what you want to do is invest and get a return on investment. Don't destroy the seeds that have been planted in the hopes of, if you build it, they will come. Real estate does not work that way. You build on what we already have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Following people, if you would get in line, James Ingold, Britt Smith.
If this passes, this takes away our future in the dairy business. We need this land for our crops. I'm 62 years old and have worked on this farm my entire life, getting up between 2:30 and 3 a.m. 7 days a week to milk our cows. Remember, none of us would be here if it wasn't for our farmers. James Ingold, just a farmer, plain and simple.
Thank you, Mr. Ingold.
Preserve the values that we have for the family farms. It wouldn't upset the cows. Instead of listening to the guns, they could listen to Elvis and have more music.
This is not, he would be turning double back flips right now if he knew we were in here discussing this. Because he just loved that farm that bad.
I do know that I love Saxe-Bahá, and I love the farms.
I live on Whitney Road in Saxe-Bahá for the past 12 years with my husband, Don. So we have 15 acres on Whitney Road, and we are opposed to the training center. It's a really great site in Saxe-Bahá because we already are really interested in that connection between growing the food and preparing it and selling it and eating it all there. The network is there. So I'm frightened about the toxic fumes that my daughter would be breathing every day. I mean, really, that's terrifying.
My home is 1,300 feet from them. So you can well imagine why I'm concerned when I hear about putting a driving track, a firing range, a fire tower, a burn facility, and more close enough so that I can see it, I can hear it, I can smell it. And I don't hear any mention of limitations. So I'm worried because it sounds like this could easily ruin my business and in all likelihood have a very negative effect on my property value.
I chose to raise my daughter here. I chose to start a farm here. When I was taking Vivian to the bathroom just now before coming up to speaking, she said, "Mama, may I speak?" And I said, "No." And then I stopped myself and I said, "Vivian, what do you want to say?" And she said, "I want to talk about raising food for people and how it nourishes them." Octane race cars. The Ingolds can speak to that better than I. They've been farmers much longer than I. But I can tell you the cows are incredibly delicate animals, and to seat this facility across from them poisons not only me and my daughter and my cows, but all the people who eat our food.
Thank you especially, Commissioner Sutton, for letting us all speak tonight. It has determinedly struggled over the past several years to become what it is today, a mill town with a makeover, a popular tourist destination. Therefore, I respectfully request that alternative locations be explored for the siting of this facility, but please, not in Saxe-Bahá. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dayton. Linda Berta.
I'd like to address the proposed Alamance County training facility. And so I ask, is that the memory that we want people to take away from their visit to Alamance County? Are there other things that this land could be used for? It's being held in public trust for the people of Alamance County, and perhaps we can think through what the best use might be for this site, and if there are other places that might be more appropriate for the training facility. Thank you very much for your time.
There's occasional recreational shooting out in Alamance County where we are, but it's nothing like what would happen with military weapons, helicopters, black smoke plumes polluting the air and the surroundings. It would be best to find this facility somewhere else.
Several concerns if you just look at the land. 15 acres of this 98, 89 acres or whatever is a swamp. I've looked at a lot of sites there's 10 other sites within 90 miles of here that are different sorts of, different training facilities from very small to very, very large. And within those facilities, one thing stuck out to me. They're all flat. This piece of land is nowhere close to flat. The idea that this is going to be a regional center where people are pulling things from other counties, other states, from distances away, doesn't make sense. Asheville and Buncombe County spent, over the last 4 years, $15 million building a site to do this very same thing.